We're back with another fantasy football free agency impact video, and we are talking Najee Harris joining the LA Chargers and Javonte Williams signing with the Dallas Cowboys. Shane, we're going to start with Najee, a 1-year, $9.5 million contract. Pretty much par for the course. If you remember, all the running backs last year in free agency got like $8 million AAV, multi-year deals. But honestly, I think this probably was the best offer Najee was getting in terms of pure money. And the dude hasn't missed a game. And so he's probably figuring, if I could just get through this year, I'll bank my $9.5 million. And my theory in the Discord was that the skill set the NFL is willing to pay him for are things that we probably don't value as much in fantasy, but like durability, the ability to just eat innings. It's like having a fourth starter in baseball. You need a guy that's just not going to get injured and is going to go out there and be able to kind of carry you during those times where you just need somebody to get the clock moving. So let's talk about it. Najee Harris going to the Chargers. This was the spot I've talked about for a while, and he actually landed here. There's nobody currently on the depth chart except for Kamani Vidal. What's your thoughts on this landing spot? Thoughts on what to do with Najee? Then we'll talk a little bit about the situation and then also his trade value. What do you think?
It's the perfect spot, right? You've been talking about it for a year. This is just the when the chicken and the egg meet, or something like that, or the road and the grass meet. I don't know, one of those sayings where things converge and it's good. This is the perfect marriage, right? The Chargers want to run the ball down your throat. They ranked 13th in rushing attempts last year. Which is pretty impressive considering that, Herbert doesn't take any of those. It's one thing when Baltimore or the Eagles are up there, obviously, Buffalo, but their quarterbacks are taking some of this. This is all running back touches, basically. 13th, Najee Harris, like you said, the dude is durable. The dude has had over 300 opportunities every season except for 2023 when he had 293. Like, the dude, you just feed him the football. You feed him the football. You feed him the football. He's not great in the passing game. We'll never get back to that season when he had 90 targets, his rookie season. That was just an aberration. But he's going to see 30 to 40 targets. So it's a great spot for him. It just is. Now, it's not going to give you that exciting upside, probably. But even if you look at last year, I mean, he's got running back 1 weeks. I mean, it's not like he was devoid of them. He has a few of them. He has a few top 15 weeks. So he might not be the guy that you're plugging in your lineup and going, this is the guy that's going to get me 30 points. Yeah, I know he's going to go off and give me 35 points. He's going to be that high end type of dude. But he's going to be consistently giving you somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 20 points. And I know that's a very wide range. Touchdowns probably have a lot to do with that, right? It's probably closer to the 12, 13, 14 point range every week. I'm not usually a guy that really cares too much about consistency, but if that's like my last flex, I'm feeling pretty good throwing that in there, to be quite honest with you. Trade value, second rounder. He's got to be worth at least a second rounder, I think.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. I think the Chargers, they have their stock amount of picks. They have an extra 6th rounder this year. Probably allows them to be a little more flexible in when they take their running back. They don't have to get a certain archetype. In fact, they could draft a, quote unquote, like 3-down running back that could just be his backup, or they could draft a complement to him like a RJ Harvey or somebody like that and just say it's it's another backfield that has multiple components to it. You don't need Najee to play on passing downs. He can, but you probably want somebody that has a little more juice, that's maybe a more specialized receiver. Let's take a look a little bit about the Chargers from last year. So here's the Chargers, Shane. 6th in the league in neutral pass rate. Chargers actually want to throw the ball. But was that because they didn't have the running game that they wanted? Or was it that they do want a running game, but they want to use the running game to kind of just keep defenses honest? Because they do have an elite quarterback. Like, it's going to be interesting. And the reason I brought this up is because you mentioned how much they ran the ball. And then it's interesting to look at in the neutral situations. Jim Harbaugh isn't as old school or stuck in the past as we might think. This tells me that, and if you look at their drop back EPA, it was actually very good as well. I mean, right here, number 4 overall. So when they threw the ball, it was good, which is that tells me, hey, I'm kind of interested in getting some Justin Herbert, but it also tells me, Shane, that Jim Harbaugh recognized quickly he has a good quarterback. He doesn't need to hide him. He doesn't need to run it 60% of the time. He probably wants a better running game.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Or to your first point, maybe he realized that J.K. Dobbins, Kamani Vidal, and I don't even know who else was there at this point.
Well, it was Gus Edwards, but the thing is, none of them were consistently there.
Right.
That's where I think this signing has the potential to give them exactly what they got last year. But game in, game out, game in, game out. We know we're going to allocate 30 plays a game to the running backs, but we don't have to worry about the guy we're running this week being gone next week, and then we have to put in Hassan Haskins or Kamani Vidal, which are clearly not the same type of player, but they were interchanged last year. I mean, they had multiple types of backfields last year with Edwards, Dobbins, Haskins, Vidal. Like, none of those guys are what you would say a certain archetype. You know what I mean? They're different. So I think they probably draft one, but I want to show you this as well because I thought this was interesting. So rush EPA. When they ran the ball last year, the Chargers were 18th in the league. Okay. When the Steelers ran the ball, they were 24th.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of tells me that when Najee Harris is your lead back, you're not banking on. I mean, look at the teams at the top. You already mentioned a couple of them. Eagles, Ravens, those two teams, like their run is dominating the game. I mean, then you have a couple others, but then it's just like when you're down and look how quickly it gets to negative, Shane. Only 6 teams had a positive rush EPA. And you go way down here, down to the Chargers and the Steelers. Like, these are just placeholders. So that's why I like the fit for Najee, because it feels like the Chargers are settling for the placeholder. They know he's a placeholder, but he's a more consistent placeholder that they can bank on game in and game out. That's why I think this signing is fascinating, but he's not going to be good. He's not going to be efficient. He's going to be what he's been, 3.8 yard per carry, and maybe he gets to 1,100 yards if he gets enough work. But that's what he is.
Well, that's funny, right? Because I'm looking up rushing success rate, and I go, well, I'm going to assume that Najee had to be significantly better than J.K. Dobbins last year, right? Like, that was the first thing. Like, first thing that popped in my head. J.K. Dobbins was 62nd in rushing success rate, and Najee was 60th. He was 60th. So, yes, it does feel like he is a placeholder, but I don't know. Is he even incrementally better than J.K. Dobbins?
That's the whole point of this conversation. I don't think he is, but you know what he is? Every game, he's going to be there, and we know what we're getting. We are settling for a league average running game.
Yes.
But you know what? We don't have to worry that if our league average running game disappears and we have nobody, that it's not all on Justin Herbert's shoulders. Because here's the other thing. It's okay when you put it all on a quarterback's shoulders when they have multiple aspects in the passing game that they can go to. Like the Eagles in a given game, as good as the Eagles are running the ball, they could have had a game where they go Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Javonte Smith, Dallas Goedert, and still probably win. But when the Chargers only have a rookie Ladd McConkey and Justin Herbert and nothing else.
Well, let me ask you this before you even finish that thought, right? So this frees them up. You were going to talk about this later. This frees them up. They're most likely not going running back early, right? This does free them up to go somewhere else in the first round, whether it's
tight end or receiver.
So this makes that obviously is going to make the offense better, right? Which can only help Harris, because if you look at Harris's touchdowns, they've been dwindling throughout his career. If he gets back up to, I just did the math, if he can get back up to 10 rushing touchdowns, that's what he had in his first 2 seasons. That's another 1.4 points per game, which, sure, it doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, it does add up, you know what, over the length of a full season. So this does at least give them the ability to not have to go running back. And who knows if they would have anyway, probably wouldn't, considering what they've just paid him. But this probably solidifies the fact that they're not going running back super early.
Yeah, and Najee, I mean, he had 18 opportunities a game. Of all the running backs last year that had 18 opportunities a game, Shane, tell me which one was the worst fantasy score. There were 23 running backs that averaged at least 8 opportunities a game last year that played at least 10 games. Najee Harris ranked, what would this be? He ranked 21st out of 23 in fantasy production. The other guys that were there with him, let's see, who was this?
Javonte?
Rico Dowdle, which we'll talk about Rico Dowdle's old team here in a second. Kareem Hunt and DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard. Those were the only other 4 running backs that were under 13 points per game with at least 17 opportunities or more. So you're not going to get production from Najee that's elevated above what his talent level is. It's going to be completely correlated with his opportunities. But let's look at some of these trades, because these are all trades that have happened since the signing. And I sorted by start 10, lineup leagues, super flex. I didn't really filter for any tight end premium or anything. So obviously we can take that trade by trade. But look at some of these.
Bro.
In a half PPR, someone gave up the 210 and 309 for Najee. Are you doing that just to buy mercenary production?
No.
You'd rather have the picks.
Yeah, I'd rather have picks because I'm taking 2 dart throws right there. Probably trying to kick one of them back to 2026 so I can use the pick in season if we're being honest with one another.
So then 208, is that too expensive for Najee? Just one pick?
Yeah, I'm finding that I have a lot less conviction on Najee than I thought. Yeah, I'll take the 208.
So here was my take. I have a lot of leagues that are point per carry. That's the format I want Najee. That's the format I'm willing to put him in there and just let him score me my 15.5 points per game. Yeah. I can flex him like that. That's where I want to get my exposure of him in the format where I can just get credit for his 18 carries a game. I'm just getting points every time he gets one. That's where to get him.
0.1, 0.15.
Anywhere he's getting a bonus, that's the format. 0.15, 0.1, 0.2. I can get an extra 2-3 points per game in that point per carry format. That's where I want to have my exposure. I really don't want to have more than 10 to 15% Najee Harris, but I'd rather have him in those leagues than in the PPR format where I'm like, man, am I really flexing? Because you're going to have to flex him. He's getting too much opportunity a game, but like he's giving you 13 points a game in a PPR. I'd rather have a receiver that can go for 30 in a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if it's not PPC, it definitely is going to devalue him because this is a guy that, like you just mentioned, I can get 2-3 extra points just off his rushing attempts. It makes a huge difference in what he is.
Let's look at a couple of these trades, and then we'll move on to Javonte.
I noticed you just ignored that first one, right?
Well, no, it's a bigger trade, so we have to talk into it a little more in depth. But this is just an example here where you were using the Najee Harris hype, value, whatever you want to call it, and added to some stuff to get an elite player in a PPR in Devon Achane. So Najee and Judy and a third for Achane. I mean, obviously that's an Achane clear win, but the point of this deal is Najee, because he's seen as this guy that's going to get a workload, you can now go hunting for other players by using him in the trade. He's not just a running back body. He's now a starting running back. He'll probably end up being top 24, top 30, even with the rookies. So you're just adding him to try to up tier, right? Like this is a perfect example of you added a wide receiver 2-3 to a running back 2 to get an elite player, and someone took the bait.
I mean, this is an awful trade. I feel bad for that person that traded away Devon Achane for that. That's absolutely disgusting. And
how about this?
Emotional abuse.
You bought Patrick Mahomes for the 102 and Najee Harris.
And it's a 2 QB.
It's that they just put that. I would just say it's super flex. Yeah.
102, because I'm guessing you needed a quarterback, right? Otherwise, you're not trading for Mahomes. So your choice was going to be Cam Ward.
It's Cam Ward and Najee, or I'm just taking Amari and Hampton and betting that I can find a QB cheaper. But I like this. If you are dead set on I want a quarterback, again, 102 was probably not getting Mahomes in a lot of leagues. But now you can kick that Najee piece in, and it's like, okay, maybe I'll do that. Because the team that is trading Mahomes probably is like, well, what are they probably thinking they can do with the 102? Take a running back, right? But now they may look at this and say, I have the 102, and I'm getting Najee who addresses my running backs, and now I can go see what I can do with the 102.
Right. So, I mean, the first thing that pops in my head anytime I trade for a pick like that and I'm giving up a player like Mahomes is that the rest of my roster is probably ass. and I'm looking to split that 102 and then also flip Najee. But I don't know if that's what this person's doing, but that's me.
Here's another one, Najee for the 210. Here's another one, Najee in the 208 for the 203. I think I'd take the 208 and Najee there because I'm just moving back 5
Yeah.
spots.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting the two dart throws on the right hand side of this one. You know what I mean? Najee's the one dart throw that pretty good chance of knowing what he's going to be, and then the 208 instead of the 203. Yeah, I'm with that, and a 402 for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I kind of like this this sell deal here too. This is a 10-teamer, but you sold Najee for the 202, which is really the 112, and you also got Ray Davis back in the deal.
Not bad.
I kind of like that. You know what I mean? Like you're getting a valuable pick and you're getting a running back thrown into the deal. Some of these other deals, I mean, this deal involves Jefferson and Saquon. I mean, Najee's just a throw in there, but there were some interesting ones in terms of main takeaway is I think Najee now represents a player that didn't have much of a market and would not have had a market if he would have just signed somewhere on a cheaper deal, like we're going to talk about here with Javonte Williams. You probably couldn't have used him in some of these deals to get something more creative. That's the main takeaway for free agency for me, Shane, is none of the players that have really gone in free agency other than maybe Godwin, Devontae Adams, like DK a little bit, like none of the other skill players this year moved the needle. But you know what they did do? They have a life now that you can throw them into other deals and you can actually get some stuff done. So you ready to talk about Javonte Williams?
Let's bring him up.
All right. So Javonte Williams.
A very different contract, first of all, right? Very different amount of money.
Yes. Here. Javonte Williams got, I believe, $3.5 million or $3 million from the Cowboys on a 1-year deal. And then they said they're not going to bring back Rico Dowdle. So they did choose Javonte Williams over Rico Dowdle, whether you agree with that or not. But yes, clearly both 1-year deals, but this is a clear backup contract. I mean, Elijah Mitchell got as much money as Javonte Williams. Both of those guys are essentially treated differently because of where they started. But at this point, they are just a running back on a depth chart that you hope have a role. So what is your thought on Javonte? A lot of people are excited because it's just the name Dallas freaking Cowboys that now they have their starter, yet everything points to
he's not.
He's a on the roster, and he's just a committee back at best. But what is your take?
Yeah, there's absolutely no way he's the starter. There's absolutely no way this dude is the starter next year at, what was it? I'm sorry, $3 million?
I believe it's $3 million, yeah.
$3 million. That is probably one of the worst contracts. And think about when he's signing this too, right? This is day one of free agency, legal tampering, whatever you want to call it. His agent knows he's not doing any better than that. And if he sits out there, it's going to get worse. That's how much the league or how little the league thinks of him.
Dude, if you're a running back and you're in this free agent class and you actually get an offer, you should probably just take it. You know,
at that range, I don't look. I'll just say this: that amount of money gives me no confidence that he's anything other than a guy that's on the roster. That's not even a guy to me that's guaranteed to make the roster. To be quite frank,
we've seen guys sign for 1-year deals like this, and then they get into camp, and it's like a 5th rounder and a UDFA have more juice. And then it's like, he doesn't. Now, they don't have a starter. So to be fair, he probably makes the team. But someone pointed out to me, this is basically the type of deal that Royce Freeman's been signing the last couple of years. So
Javonte Williams has already moved into the Royce Freeman range, which was not a great range, right? He just kept traveling to running back situation to running back situation. And everyone he went to, this could be the time that Royce Freeman actually does something, and he never did anything. So I don't like to say I have no hope for a player, right? Because there's always some hope, right? There's this outside chance something could happen. But I think Javonte Williams has shown that he's not particularly good as a lead back. I don't think that he's particularly good as a committee back. He had a ton of work last year as a receiver, and that didn't turn out particularly well for him. And his yards per carry, I know it's a very antiquated stat, is very bad for the last 2 years. He's just, since his injury, I don't know that we've seen anything that makes us believe that he is going to be a starting NFL running back. If someone in your league is buying this, that he is, just because he landed with one of the premier landing spots with Dallas, you've got to move him. Either way, you've got to move him. Hopefully, you can find someone that's willing to overpay for him. And to overpay, I mean, give me 2/3 is an overpay at this point for Javonte Williams. If I was trading him straight up for picks.
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem. So he goes from Denver, who was 17th in rush EPA last year. And he was the best running back on Denver. So that doesn't say much other than they probably had a lot of bad running backs besides him. And he goes to Dallas, who was 26. Dallas also lost a couple offensive linemen. So you can't really look at their offense and say their running game is going to be better. So conceivably a worse situation. If you look at Javonte Williams' opportunities per game, it was the lowest of his career. So this isn't somebody that you probably expect to even get close to the Najee Harris workload. He was at 12.3 opportunities per game last year. The positives, I'll just say this about Javonte, positives were it's hard for guys in this range where they're only getting maybe 10 to 13 opportunities a game. It's hard for them to produce a ton consistently because a lot of times they usually have a specific role. Like they're either getting receiving work and they're not getting goal line work or whatever that might be. But I will say this, Javonte Williams had a 34% target rate. So worst case scenario, if they do draft a running back that maybe is, let's say they draft Ollie Gordon. Okay. Say they take Ollie Gordon, for example. Ollie Gordon is probably somebody that I would say is clearly a better runner than Javonte Williams right away. But the one saving grace is Shane, he has shown an ability to be the third down pass protector. He's just going to be out there, which could lead to some receiving work. Like you mentioned, he's not good on the ground. At least he hasn't been since he's come back from his injury. But it is encouraging that I think that's his role. He is your third down, hurry up, pass protecting running back that is decent in the passing game. He's good in the passing game. He just is. He had 50 plus catches. Yeah, he is. Because if you look at some of his other receiving metrics, that he doesn't fit the profile of a great receiver, but he's good enough to where if he can just win that role, I'm looking at Dallas and let's say they do draft Ollie Gordon, Shane. I'm not even thinking Ollie Gordon necessarily just outproduces Javonte Williams if he doesn't have the passing game role. They both could be in the, 8.5 to 11.5 points per game. And you're like, I can't really start either one. I just think that's his role. And it's worse to have the Najee role when you start losing work than the role that Javonte is probably going to fill.
I can't look. I'm just going off what I've seen, and I'm just looking at. He had a lot of work last year. He had 52 receptions, and to only be able to convert that to 9.3 fantasy points per game with that many targets means that you are not good, for lack of a better word.
Not.
And
it's
I
not good. It's not good. I'm just trying to find some silver lining here.
I get it. We have to. Well, we don't have to say nice things about anyone, quite frankly. I think I haven't pulled out gutter bag in a while. That this might be one of those situations. I don't want to be that mean.
Well, let's have some levity here. Here are the trades that have happened with Javonte Williams since he's been signed with Dallas. Someone paid the $312. I don't hate that. That's just buying a running back depth on my depth chart. That's it. And then this deal, someone traded away Javonte Williams and the 209, but they got back Aaron Jones in the 408. I think that's an interesting deal because I'm getting the 209 and I'm getting a free Javonte and I'm giving up Aaron Jones. What side do you prefer there?
Oh, man, we just talked about Aaron Jones the other night, man.
But you paid the 209 and you threw Javonte in. I could see myself in the right format with the right roster ahead of me going, I don't mind taking the 209 and getting a free Javonte Williams, especially if I could turn around and sell him for a third.
I'm looking at it as Aaron Jones for the 209, Williams for the 408, right? That's how cross positional to me.
And you would agree, you would pay the 408 for Javonte. I would.
Yeah, I'll pay the 408. That's
a pick that late, 312, 408. I'm willing to send that for a running back body the way that I roster construct. So it really comes down to Aaron Jones.
I will take the Javonte Williams side. I'll take it. Mostly because of the 209. It's carrying a lot of water in this pail.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not a lot of deals. I mean, obviously there's been 14 deals with Najee and only 2 deals with Javonte.
Look, if Javonte, I'll say this: if Javonte, look, if he had gotten the Najee Harris money, my outlook on it would be a lot
Oh,
different.
for
It would
sure.
be 1,000% different. But you have to look at the money that they're, that the players getting. Like this isn't even, like I said, this isn't even a money that guarantees that he's on their roster next year. To cut him, the cap hit would probably be something stupid like $600,000.
I mean, Shane, Elijah Mitchell got 3.5 and Samaje Perine got 3 million guaranteed. So the fantasy community would not put those three in the same tier,
No.
but the NFL just did. You know what I mean? They're basically, we want this guy because they have experience. We can put him in a role. They may be able to play multiple roles, but there's no guarantee that by time we get to the start of the season, they have a fantasy relevant role. So there's still a lot to come. The last takeaway here is actionability. You have life with both of these. You have different levels of life that you can do with Javonte versus Najee, but you at least have something that you can go and do. Whether you are on I want to buy more Javonte or I want to just get anything I can, give me any pick in this draft just to get rid of the guy, that's fine. But the free agency excitement, I think this is a good landing spot for him specifically that could turn some water into wine. You know what I mean? You had nothing before this, and now you do. And then Najee's a little bit of a different story. But final thoughts from you on either of these and just running back process in general, because there's going to be others. Rico Dowdle that signs, J.K. Dobbins that signs. I mean, there's already been a few others, like I mentioned, Perine and Elijah Mitchell. Like, they're all different, but none of these guys, maybe except for Najee to an extent, but not even him fully, are at all safe from a team drafting two other running backs in the draft. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even guaranteed to make the roster, like you said before. So final thoughts from you?
Yeah, no, exactly that. Look at the money. Look at the money that these players are getting, the guaranteed money. And this is day one money that Najee got 9.5 and Javonte got 3. It probably doesn't bode well for the rest of the running back class. Like, I love Rico Dowdle, but Rico Dowdle goes sign somewhere for 2.5 million. I think I can say truthfully that my hopes and dreams for him are dashed. But to your point, you now are able to do something with these players when you couldn't yesterday. You just look at the spike with Najee. I don't know what Javonte Williams trades look like 24 hours ago. I'm going to guess no one was really concerned about him. No one was trying to move him. So, look, if you have him on your roster and you want to move him, take the opportunity now to do so. Whether it's for even a fourth and a free roster spot, that still has value.
Yep. You got some time before the draft, but that's the whole point of a lot of these free agency moves is it gives you a window. It gives you life to make some moves with these players. There's going to be more. We will be back. If you don't catch us on here, you can catch us inside our Discord, ddfantasyfootball.com. Click the QR codes, jump into the community, get 50% off if you click the link in the description or on the QR codes. But there's a lot more that we'll talk about in there, and I'm sure, Shane, we will be back with some other reaction videos with stuff that happens in free agency. So thank you, everybody. Good luck with your deals, and see you next time.